I know a lot of I know a lot of people like there's it's a lot of people just hate it.
Right.
Absolutely hated it.
Yeah, I mean,
And I feel like the hate that it gets is the old man syndrome of the get off my lawn
Can we
because
just redo this from the top? Because when the Mixcast came unplugged, it muted the audio to the stream.
sure.
okay. All right, welcome back to Horror Dork. Today we are talking about remakes.
Remake.
Are they good, or are they a good thing for for horror culture, or are they a plight? Are they are I mean, I think we all have horror remakes that we like. There's horror remakes that we don't like. We'll get into some of the stuff that makes them good and stuff that we don't like about them. We were just talking about a couple of horror remakes that we do like, Maniac and Evil Dead. Um, Now there's some those ones I think they change a lot of from the source material. Maniac stylistically and Evil Dead like in pretty much everything except for like the two basic like plot elements that you need for
Right.
Evil Dead. But
Deadites and
yep,
the
a
solitude.
cabin in the wood, the setting and a Necronomicon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but let's talk about some stuff that we don't like. Let's talk about some horror remakes that we think are fucking awful.
Psycho.
Psycho. Okay.
It's Psycho. It's not that it's awful. It's 100% unnecessary. It was a cool idea. Like when you first hear about it, they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna do a shot for shot remake."
Right.
But then why? If I'm gonna watch the same movie, let me watch it actually from Alfred Hitchcock. You
And
know,
the funny thing is about that too is it's not shot for shot either. Like you a podcast I listened to with Gorley and Russ recently they watched both of them at the same time and did a commentary track on it, and they were picking up on, hey, this is not matching up, and like there's a certain point where there's a lot of things that are different, like not story wise but shot wise and stuff. Like I forget the director who did the remake, but he took some liberties with it. um yeah, Psycho's a weird one. Like I think it's okay. I think
Is that Van Zant that did the remake?
yes. um I think Vince Vaughn is miscast big time as Norman Bates.
Mm.
Like I just don't.
which
I
the thing is
like
too. I like
again,
Vince
yeah, like that gets into like where the things that a lot of people like don't like about remakes is that they feel unnecessary. Like if you do one, you might as well do something, either make it the way that you think it should have been made, like
Vaughn. Like a reimagining.
right, yes, or do something, or have a radical take on it. You can't just remaking the same movie is boring in my opinion.
See, I think that the best purpose of a remake, what makes it necessary, what makes it a good use, is if the remake is basically an on ramp. So you have movies like, let's say, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, there's a lot of people out there, younger people, that aren't going to want to watch a 1970s movie where there's
True.
no blood, there's no gore, it's just all atmosphere. But they're willing to watch this remake, and maybe once the remake gets them in, they're going to go, you know what, let me go back and watch that original. So it's almost like
A
I said,
gateway
on
movie.
ramp that lets these people get onto here and start to fall in love with the whole series, except Next Generation. Uh, but I think that's the purpose. But then we get into the whole gatekeeping thing. That's going to be huge out there, which is, oh, you can't like this movie because you just started liking it, and
Right.
it's a dual edged sword.
Yeah.
But remakes
I think any
really
movie, though,
aren't.
you're going to find a large group of haters for.
Oh well, you always will. Because haters
I
gonna hate.
but there's people that, and I used to be like one of these people where I would judge something before I even like saw a frame of it. You know, you would hear about something being remade and you just roll your eyes. You know, but like that. I honestly at the time that's how I felt about the Evil Dead remake. When I heard about it, I'm like, come on, this doesn't need to be remade. But then I saw it and I was like, okay, they did something different. They you know they gave it a budget. You know,
Yes.
they made the movie that Sam Raimi probably would have fucking loved to have made, like the effects wise and
Yeah,
stuff.
oh yeah, considering he got the budget for that one by going business to business and like begging them to sponsor his movie.
Right. It's like when and then you have like ones like Wicker Man. Like that one is just I mean it's a famously terrible movie. Like there's a lot of things that are just wrong in that movie other than, you know, it's a remake of a beloved movie. But like that movie is like the original one is slow. And maybe somebody would want, but I mean you watch the Wicker Man remake and you are deterred from watching any more Wicker Man material
I mean,
if you're not into
will
it.
it shock you to find out that I like the Wicker Man?
That does not surprise me in any way,
But
shape, or
the
form.
reason I like it is also the reason I would never watch
Shocks
the
me.
original. I would never watch the original because the reason I like the remake is that it's
Oh,
bad.
I
and it's
misunderstood.
Nick Cage.
So,
I thought you meant you liked the original.
No, nope. I like the remake,
Okay,
but I like it because it's bad.
right.
So when you tell me, "Oh man, the original's so much better," I'm gonna go, "Okay, I'm not gonna watch it then." Does it have Nicolas Cage punching someone in a bear costume? No, then I don't want to watch it.
What? So, like, what is the point? Like, why are remakes made versus why should they be made?
Why they're made is money
Exactly.
yeah.
to make money to
99%
To
of
hold
the
on to
time.
IP,
to
like
squeeze more
it-
juice out
I
of
mean,
that
there
lemon.
most of the time it's for craven reasons. Like, yeah, to hold on to IP to try to cash in on something. Like, however, you know, art can be made during that time. Like the people have made good stuff with you know taking something that maybe wasn't even beloved. Like My Bloody Valentine is a movie that is only beloved to hardcore horror fans. Like it's a weird slasher that never got a sequel or anything. So it only the only people that really, I think more people have seen the remake than have seen the original one, and that one is a fairly, you know, faithful. That's one of the ones where they just kind of took it and like we'll just make the kills, you know, more impressive looking.
Which that can work because
Right.
in horror, I mean, how many
That's
times
what-
have there been a movie you don't like, a horror movie, but it's got that one kill in it that you're like, oh, you got to at least see this.
I just rewatched The Prowler, and the kills in that movie are fucking insane.
Tom Savini.
Tom Savini, there's a head blow off. He did the effects for this movie a year after Maniac. That looks even better than the one in
Yeah.
Maniac. It's so awesome. Like a guy gets stabbed through the top of his head. But like I think about that movie being remade, and I'm like, there's stuff in that movie, like the movie surrounding those effects isn't that great. Like,
So-
okay, sure, go.
Okay, because I think you're going to touch on what I was going to say about why a movie should be remade, and I think in most cases it's because a movie has become outdated. It's
Yeah.
you know, there's storytelling techniques for writing that have evolved in 50 years since a lot of these movies that are being remade. Because arguably modern horror started in the early 70s, late 80s, or early 70s, late 60s. But and there's equipment that they can do stuff better than what they did before, so it will appeal more to a modern audience than, you know, having your 14, 15-year-old nephew, daughter, whatever, sit down and watch the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's a remake where you can introduce them to a whole new series. So, and I think one of the important aspects that really goes into what, like, when you talk about a movie like My Bloody Valentine, and it works, is there's certain promises for the premise that are set up with the series, and when you start going away from that, like say in The Wicker Man, where you have realistic characters caught in this surreal situation making realistic choices, then you have an unrealistic character making bonker cartoon
Yeah,
decisions. It goes against what
I
you
will
would call
walk
the
off this
vibe or
absolutely.
spirit of the original. Was that Golden?
I said I will walk off this podcast right now if you say one.
We all
one
know.
word
We all
about
know.
Nicolas Cage. No,
We're
I'm just
all
kidding.
we're all
No,
Nicolas
I mean,
Cage
yeah.
lovers.
No,
here.
I mean, I know. I'm just messing with you. I mean, I agree with you. Which fucking mark that down.
Woo.
I think that the purpose
Surprised
of a
Anthony didn't do a
remake,
spit take with that
whether whether it's horror, whether it's anything else, should be to bring new people into the fold of the audience, and to bring it up something. I'm pretty sure it was you that, and this isn't horror, but the Ghostbusters thing,
Yeah.
where it gets a lot of hate, and everybody gets hate from are the original nostalgia Ghostbusters lovers.
Right,
but
right,
you've even
right.
said the reason you like it is
It's different.
it's different. And did you
Yeah.
say like your daughter
My daughter loves it.
loves it? So now you guys have this.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So like, there's value in it, but like a bad remake can absolutely, like, if there's a series that is long standing like Nightmare on Elm Street, they can absolutely just kill the franchise.
Oh, yeah.
There has like there's been talk of bringing Freddy back and stuff, but nothing's come like that.
Let's talk about that for a second, because not only did that remake stop Nightmare on Elm Street dead in its tracks, there hasn't even been a 4K release for those fucking movies, and we're talking about a movie series that was arguably one of the most well-known of the 80s.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Freddy is still an icon, but that movie is toxic.
How is there no 4K
Yep.
version of either of those? And last I heard, there was a 4K coming out, but now I'm guessing, from what I've been hearing, it's not the original, it's the remake.
Oh, really? Who is
Yeah.
asking for
I
that?
don't know.
And that's the thing.
Freaks.
Like that was Nightmare
People
on
are
Elm Street
begging
was-
for 4K.
Nightmare on Elm
versions.
Street
Well,
was
I
the
think they are.
first thing I bought when I first bought a DVD player was the box set.
Oh yeah,
And
had
I was
that too.
so excited because it
With
came
Freddy
with
on the
3D
side,
glasses.
where you put him in the spine and
Yeah.
ends up and as Freddy.
It's perfect.
I had the VHS one too.
Like it made me so happy because it came with the 3D glasses, the original 3D ending of Freddy's Dead. Because I never got to see that
Right.
in theaters. Like, so then you watch it's like anytime you watch a 3D movie, but not in 3D, and you can see the things, and you're like, oh, I bet you that was so cool.
Yeah, and again, like,
Friday
especially when
13th
the
got me with that, too.
last movies that you had were the whatever Dream Child, and then Freddy's Dead, and then the remake. It just I
you
guess
had
New
Freddy
Nightmare,
vs.
New
Jason
Nightmare, and
and
Freddy
New
vs.
Nightmare.
Jason. I guess I forgot.
New
about
Nightmare
that.
was excellent.
I guess
Yeah.
I don't really count those as like, well, they're Nightmare movies, so my point is invalid. But as I say, they're not like the mainline fucking Nightmare movies, but neither is the remake.
Right.
But the remake is based on those movies, and that remake just fucking absolutely killed that
It
franchise.
did. They made bad choices on changes to make, like, because you do need to make some changes. You can't come out with the same thing, just better.
And the
And I
movie's
think
completely
the
watchable.
problem I think what the issue is why they can't even do a legacy sequel is because you need Robert Englund. Like, I don't
it's
know
a
what it is.
personality-driven character.
With Jason and Leatherface, anybody can, and Michael Myers, anybody could be under that fucking.
There's no
mask.
That's because
personality.
their personality is just hulking,
Right.
slow down.
But with Freddy, he's talking, he's quipping, it's his face. Like, even though it's covered in prosthetics, it's still Robert Englund.
Oh, you still know, like,
I mean, look at Leprechaun. It's the same thing.
Yeah, true. And I mean, that last one was okay. It was
Yeah.
made by some of the people that worked on the guys that did Manborg.
and
but-
speaking of like,
It's not the same thing.
speaking of remakes that made changes that were bad choices, in my opinion, the remake of Pet Cemetery.
Yes.
Like, I get
Okay.
it that
Yeah,
you have to make some changes in that, but when they
did
changed
not
it
like that movie.
to which child got
Right,
splattered by the
right.
semi, and then they changed it. Like, Pet Cemetery, when it took me years to finish watching it because Gage freaked me out so bad. Like, it was something that,
Zelda
like,
was the thing that fucking
Zelda,
fucked
her
me
too.
up.
Like, Zelda freaked me out. Gage freaked me out to the point where, like, I remember the first time I was sitting around with some friends watching Pet Cemetery, the first original, and it got to the point where Gage was on the phone, and he's like, "I played with my," and I shut it off. and I didn't come back to it for like literally it was 5-6 years before I would even attempt to watch it again because it just got so far in my head. And then like you watch the new one, and I'm like, it doesn't have that. Like what made it so good was it wasn't like it's like, yeah, he's like this big. I can punt him across the room. I'm not scared of him, but you're scared of him because it's just this weird, creepy. Like it was perfectly done in my opinion.
Golden
Just
used
scare
to
the
have a
shit out of
theory about stuff that broke your mind, and that's how you could scare you. Because you talked about Insidious: The Last Key,
Yeah.
which I don't remember what that movie did. That
I don't remember either.
Scared.
I've
The
seen
third
it.
one, it was they waited an extra beat because I've watched enough horror movies. Like
okay, so
you
you're
know
used to the
when
timing of
something's
jump
gonna hit.
scares.
And it was, yeah, I still remember the scene, and it wasn't even like a horror type scene either. It was she was sitting there and she sees this guy, and then like the music swells and you're ready, and then nothing happens, and then you're like, oh, okay, nothing. And then she gets hit by a car, and just something about
And now you don't know what to expect.
yeah. Now all of a sudden I'm like, oh my god, everything I know is wrong.
Yep.
And I spent the rest of the movie on edge. Like
Every
every
mechanism you
single jump scare,
built
even
your
if it was
whole life.
telegraphed,
It's
scared the shit out of me.
That's an
useless.
effective horror trick, and I mean, to get
It's
a guy
brilliant.
like you is pretty good. I mean, that movie, from what I remember, is kind of whatever. But I mean, hey, an effective horror movie is an effective horror
Yeah,
movie.
and it freaked me out. So, I still remember too because it freaked me out so bad that when I went back home, I went back to my house, and then like I went. I think I remember I like went to the bathroom and I came out and my front door was open, and I think it was
a
open
ghost.
because I didn't close
It's
it
a
all the way.
poltergeist.
But then I
Gonna
spent.
get you.
I was doing the horror movie cliche of going, "All right, guys, it's not funny. I know you're here." Like we're
Okay.
and
Speaking of
it was just making me
Poltergeist,
so freaked out.
that is another remake that I felt was like wholly unnecessary. Like the like I think the original one holds up. Like I
does.
watched that with my daughter, and she was kind of freaked out by it. Like the remake, it just doesn't have that fucking punch to it.
Yeah,
Because
a couple hokey effects maybe, but I mean the original, like,
right,
but maybe that's like if you're really looking for, this is why it's not great. It still is. Like I agree with you. Like it really still is, but
right. Like like I think like maybe it's just the old guy in me, but like for me, practical onset effects are always beat like CGI, just CGI.
For sure.
CGI, like practical effects with CGI blending is effective for me. That works, like Evil Dead remake and like Jurassic Park.
Right.
Mad
That is a
Max.
lot. That a lot of people say like, oh, it's all CGI. There's like the CGI effects in that movie. You notice when it's CGI. You don't notice when it's a fucking practical effect. Like a practical effect. That's when the dinosaurs look real.
Yeah.
I mean, it just I don't know. And a lot of those remakes, like I get like we just talked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That one does not really. That one relies more on practical effects. But you get a little further down the line, and once you get to Nightmare on Elm Street, man, it's fucking CGI city, and everything just looks rubber and fake and bad.
I think a lot of times too, when you get someone putting their fingerprints on stuff when they're remaking a horror movie or even a sequel, they start to worry about what makes horror films work and what makes horror films scary instead of just keeping it simple and focusing on your script and being like, what's going to make this scene scary? Not what works in other horror movies or anything, what you got on the page and what you have available for your resources to make it as scary as possible. Because it shows when you try to appeal to a genre rather than to the movie you're making.
Right, and horror fans pick up on that instantly.
Yeah,
Like they could sniff that shit out like immediately.
and
Like a lot of like
I mean, it feels unnatural. So, like, not just horror fans, dude. Like, anyone watching that movie, that's why it doesn't resonate.
yeah, I mean, like even with like normal people don't like that. Like normal, like I hate saying normal people, but like people that aren't horror fans don't like that movie either.
Yeah.
Like they would rather watch the original one, and that's damning on your remake.
Yeah, and
Like
because I feel like a filmmaker should never try to appeal to the genre because the fucking fans can't even agree on myself included here, like
Right.
what is
We've
horror?
never had
you know?
arguments about what's horror, and I don't know
So,
what you're
like,
talking
when you try to appeal to like the horror genre itself, you're doing yourself a disservice, and just take it outside of the genre and look at the project you have at hand, and don't worry about hitting tropes and shit
Right.
or whatever, like or stuff that's done. I mean, if it obviously certain situations like, well, how did they set this shot up? It'll help you, get creative with your own shot, but just on a mass level, like go to any Facebook group and there's 15 sides. It's not just straight down the middle.
No, never. No, like, so yeah. So so we were talking about the shot for shot remake with Psycho. How do we feel about Funny Games? That one is remade, like, all it is like they Americanized it with same director and
Right.
everything.
I
Well,
think-
I watched the American version first,
So did I.
Okay.
and when I
saw the original
rewatched
one
the
first.
original, I was like, this is stupid. Like, it made me hate the American version.
Yeah, I watched the original one first. I rented it on Netflix. I got the disc. It was back then.
Netflix used to
'Cause
come in the mail.
I had heard about the movie, and then I saw that it was getting remade. I was like, oh, cool! I'll watch the original one, and that really ruined the experience of watching the
But-
American one because it was literally the same thing, but it just so, again, the magic is not there. Like it just was. The original one just punches harder.
But I
It has a
think-
grittier feel to it. When
It
you
does
get
have
it,
a grittier feel, but I feel like it could be more effective with non-horror fans if they don't ultimately hate it because it's going against like
right? Like
years of
like
screenwriting
if you've
technique,
never,
but
yeah, if you've
you have
yeah,
Naomi
like, that
Watts
movie is
and
weird.
Tim Roth like getting butchered, and it
Yeah.
doesn't show it or nothing, but
Right, like I don't. That is one where maybe if you've never seen the original one and you're adverse to subtitles,
Right.
the American one is literally the same fucking movie.
And
like
the reason why
the same
yeah,
movie.
the reason why Funny Games sucks is because the only reason it was made was to be a political statement on you know people claiming that gore or whatever is bad for audience watchers.
Yeah, which was a message in 1997 when the movie was originally made. In 2009,
we already had
fucking-
that movie.
Yeah,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1973.
Again.
See, I think like Americanizing remakes kind of goes into the whole thing that I say is the purpose of a remake is it brings new audiences to the fold that
I
wouldn't
agree.
become normal, because there are a lot of people out there that are like, I won't watch it, it's subtitled. There were people that wouldn't have watched
Wasn't
Ringo,
the Grudge,
Grudge.
made by the same guy?
or I think so.
The American one? I believe it
can't remember.
was. And that movie is different enough from the original
Yeah,
one,
for
but
sure.
still gets the creepiness of it.
Right. But it
Like
brings in the
that one
people
is
that
one of the
wouldn't
ones,
watch.
yeah. And like The Ring, I like that movie as well. I think that
And
those
the director's great.
yeah, those two movies coming out so close together really like got people primed for J horror, and for people like me, like horror fans.
Dark Water, yeah.
Yeah, we seek out the original ones and watch those ones before we check out the remakes. Like
It was great though because it opened the door for movies we probably would have had a hard time getting. Like
yeah, like I see value. Like back in the day, like I probably
like
would've-
Tokyo Gore Police. That would never been released in America.
Oh,
if
definitely not.
for those movies doing so well.
Right.
Those remakes.
Yeah. Like there's definitely value in that kind of stuff for remake. Like, but again, like if it's done bad, like it's just it always sucks. Like you always run that gamble though. I know we got to wrap it up. Golden's got to fly.
But I just feel real quick. I just feel like in that regard, horror remakes are a good thing because they open the door. Like you may hate the movie, but you're gonna get more shit than what you would have gotten otherwise.
That's true.
Right.
Better or worse. I guess.
I'm always of the opinion of make something original. Try to do that. I mean, a lot of these times they're not. Or if you have an original take on the property, That's what I kind of prefer, like kind of doing the same thing only with updated, settings or whatever. Usually doesn't work for me. But there have been times where I've been proven wrong, and usually I'm over the mind now. I'll watch the movie before I fucking say I think it sucks. Like I watched the Roadhouse remake, and I loved it. It's
Yes!
so awesome.
Victory for me.
Len Wyman directed it.
Why is that a victory for you?
Because I was like, oh, I'm checking this out. I can't wait for this. And Mr. Sir was like, that's dumb. I'm not going to watch it. And then I'm like,
oh,
I was
did?
like, oh, Post Malone's in this. And he's like, that's not going to get me to watch it.
Roadhouse is one of those movies where I was like, this is a perfect movie. It does not need to be touched in any way, shape, or form. And Len Wyman's one of those directors where he can make something, he makes either good trash or fucking the worst shit ever. And this is how he was trying to sell the fucking movie to me, by the way. He goes,
Golden.
hey, Post Malone's in it.
That wasn't me trying to sell.
And I was like, that's not a selling point for me, man. You're not getting me to watch a movie
I
because
was just
Post
surprised
Malone
Post
is in
Malone
it.
was in it. That wasn't my selling point.
But the movie's got incredible, like, action choreography. Like, the fighting in that movie's awesome. All the fights. There's a scene where a bar fight breaks out because a guy goes, bar fight, and then everybody just starts fighting each other. Literally, that happens.
I
in the
thought
movie.
that
It's ridiculous.
I will say though, like I get Golden's point because sometimes like tell you stuff, and it's just to give you facts, and you like read into subtext or something. Like, why would you try to sell the movie to me on that? I'm like, I'm not. I just
was just
was
surprised.
interesting.
I was like, oh my god, he's in it.
Info.
I will say this about the.
Usually when I'm okay, because that's how it works for me. When I'm trying to get somebody into something, I'm like, I'll be like, all right, this happens in it. So just so you know, this is going to happen in the movie. Like, I don't want to spoil too much, but this happens or whatever. Like, if I was trying to get you to watch The Parlor, and like a guy gets stabbed through the top of the head and you see it go out the bottom and his eyes roll back. It's one of the coolest fucking deaths ever. But then when other people are telling me stuff, I'm like, are you trying to sell me on this by telling me this? Because it's not selling me on why I'm getting into it.
I will say,
it's a character flaw of mine. It's nothing on you.
The remake of Roadhouse, I felt like they better portrayed why the main character tries not to be violent. I felt like that was a really good take on his personality and why he is.
It was one of those things where giving a backstory didn't really bother me too much because they changed his character so much. It was
And
like a different guy.
the backstory
He
was
just had the name was the same.
The backstory was given piecemeal throughout the thing, and I felt like it was used to push the story along. Like it was never like, oh, let me just dump this exposition.
Right.
It was people trying to use his
And the
past
bad guys in that movie are so evil too. You just can't wait to see them get fucking Dalton just beat the ever living shit out of all of them.
Sometimes, multiple times, he just keeps coming back.
Conor McGregor is just himself.
He is, and he doesn't even. He's not a good actor. I mean,
no.
His character was so one-dimensional, but you could tell it was just
him.
He just showed up on set, and they're like, "Yeah, just do what you would do in this situation." He's like, "Oh," but one part of that got to me, like,
I'm gonna
so
punch you
funny.
in your jibbly wibblers.
When he's like,
I'm gonna knock you around.
when he first runs into the sun, and he's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "I got a
walking like
message
this
to you. I
soul.
got a message from your dad." He's like, "What's the message?" He's like, "Boop." I don't know what it was, but that shot, I laughed hysterically, and I don't know why. I just loved that part because they didn't even dwell.
Yeah, the Roadhouse remake got 2 big thumbs up from me. Len Wyman directed it. I recently rewatched Edge of Tomorrow. A fucking awesome movie, underrated completely. Definitely, if you're into sci-fi and action movies, that movie fucking rips. It's so good.
We definitely have to wrap up.
All right, we gotta go. But so that's our talk on horror remakes. I think we all kind of got a little bit of insight on what we think about those things. So for Horror Dork, I'm Mr. Sir,
I'm Golden. Oh, yeah.
I'm Anthony.
I was gonna try to steal my thunder again.
and
I've never done
we're
that.
gonna be remade. We're gonna be
Rehashed.
I'm
Reimagined.
gonna be reimagined as Mr. Ma'am. They're making me a girl. It's woke.
I'm gonna be golden next week.
They made Horror Dork woke.
Dun dun dun.